Somewhere in the Kansas prairie, a gravestone stands alone. The inscription is written in Hebrew. Most people have never heard of this place, and yet it is not the only one. Scattered across America, you will find the remnants of forgotten Jewish colonies. Crumbling foundations. Empty fields where synagogues once stood. Most vanished within a decade. Some left behind only gravestones. Others left nothing at all. These are 10 Jewish ghost towns in America that time completely forgot. Now, let us begin. We start our countdown in Comanche County, Kansas, with a colony called Gilead. In March of 1886, about a dozen families of Romanian Jews settled in a spot 3 miles south of the town of Evansville. These were not the Russian Jews who dominated most American colonies. These were Romanians fleeing their own persecution, and they arrived with hope in their hearts and very little else. The Montefiore Agricultural Aid Society had helped establish the settlement. The families built homes and began working the land. They planted wheat and corn and dreamed of harvests that would sustain them for generations. But Kansas had other plans for them. A 10-year period of drought began in 1887. Severe winters followed. The crops failed year after year. The wells ran dry. By 1891, just 5 years after the colony was founded, there were no settlers left from Gilead. Today, if you drive to Comanche County and search for any trace of Gilead, you will find nothing. The prairie reclaimed everything. Only records in historical archives confirm that Jewish families once celebrated holidays and said prayers in Hebrew on this empty Kansas wind. A colony vanishing into the prairie is sobering enough. But what about an entire city that was meant to be America's first autonomous Jewish state? Number 9 takes us to Grand Island, New York. In 1825, a wealthy friend of politician and playwright Mordecai Manuel Noah purchased thousands of acres on Grand Island near Buffalo. His vision was extraordinary. He wanted to create a city called Ararat that would serve as a refuge for the Jewish nation. It would be the first autonomous Jewish city-state in almost 1,800 years. Because he couldn't get boats to the island, Noah staged an elaborate dedication ceremony across the river in a Buffalo church, where a grand cornerstone was unveiled. But Noah's grand ark sank without a trace. Not a single Jewish settler heeded his call to move to Ararat. Before the end of 1825, Noah himself was advising friends not to invest in his dream city. The elaborate ceremony became a footnote in history. The robes were returned to the theater. The dream evaporated like morning mist on the Niagara River. Today, a small roadside plaque on East River Road commemorates the planned colony that never came to be. The original cornerstone is now housed at the Buffalo History Museum. Grand Island is covered with apartment complexes and a Radisson hotel. Nothing else remains of the city that was supposed to save a people. A city with 0 residents is one thing. But what about a colony destroyed in a single catastrophic night? Number 8 brings us to Sicily Island in Catahoula Parish, Louisiana. In August of 1881, the first agricultural colony of Russian Jews in America was established in this swampy bayou country. It was also the first Jewish socialist commune in North America, founded by the Am Olam movement. The name Am Olam means eternal people in Hebrew, and their mission was to prove that Jews could work the land just like any other nation. The original colony numbered 47 men and 140 total members. These were people fleeing the riots and massacres of Yelisavetgrad and Kiev. They had witnessed horror and they wanted to build something new, but they quickly realized the land was not worth what they had paid. Out of 2,800 acres, only 700 uncleared acres were suitable for farming. Still, they persevered. For 8 months, they fenced grounds, repaired roads, plowed fields, cleared about 450 acres, dug wells, built cottages, and planted grain, cotton, spelt, and corn. Then the flood came. In a single season, all of their homes and livestock were swept away. The colony failed completely. Today, Sicily Island is a village with a population of 336, according to the 2020 census. No visible trace of the Jewish colony survives. The swamp has reclaimed everything. Water destroyed Sicily Island in a single season. But the next colony faced a slower and perhaps crueler fate. Number 7 takes us to Hodgman County, Kansas, and a colony called Beersheba. This was the first of the Jewish communities established in Kansas, founded by 24 Russian Jewish families in the late summer of 1882. Rabbi Isaac M. Wise appealed to the Cincinnati community to provide funds. Once raised, Charles K. Davis and Leo Wise led the settlers to Kansas. They named their new home after the ancient biblical city of Beersheba. The biblical Beersheba was known for its wells, and the colonists hoped they too would find water in abundance. The colonists built a 60-foot sod schoolhouse that doubled as a synagogue. They dug wells and farmed sorghum and kitchen vegetables. Dugouts and sod houses were constructed for homes. For a moment, it seemed like the dream might work, but disputes with their supervisor named Baum poisoned everything. By 1884, many colonists had given up farming and started working for the railroad instead. Then came the final blow. Baum was ordered to take away all the farming implements. The settlers who thought the tools had been given to them permanently discovered they were only on loan. A decade after the colony was established, none of the colonists remained, and the land reverted to prairie. Today, several gravestones stand 8 miles from Garden City, Kansas, in a remote landscape of cornfields. These weathered stones with Hebrew inscriptions are the only physical remains of Beersheba. Local farmers occasionally stop to wonder about the names carved into those stones and the lives those names once represented. Disputes with aid societies destroyed Beersheba. But the next colony faced something even more sinister. A benefactor who may not have been what he seemed. Number 6 brings us to Cotopaxi in Fremont County, Colorado. In early 1882, approximately 63 Russian Jewish immigrants settled in this rocky mountain terrain near the Arkansas River, at an elevation of nearly 7,000 feet. The colony began with a letter. In 1880, an aid society received correspondence from a wealthy Denver businessman named Emmanuel Saltiel. He indicated his desire to settle Jewish immigrants on land he owned. With extensive property including mines and milling enterprises, Saltiel seemed like the perfect benefactor. But when the colonists arrived in the spring of 1882, they found a harsh reality that contradicted every promise. One colonist later described Cotopaxi as the poorest place in the world for farming. Poor land, lots of big rocks, no water. Some historians believe Saltiel may have used the colonists as cheap labor for his mining operations rather than genuinely wanting to help them build farms. Still, they tried. A Sefer Torah was donated by the New York Orphan Asylum. They located an abandoned building to use as a synagogue. But the climate allowed crops to grow for less than 4 months out of the year. The first frost killed most of what they planted. By June of 1884, nearly 2 years after the settlement was founded, the colonists were forced to disband despite heroic efforts. Today, 3 tiny graves remain in the Cotopaxi Cemetery. Their communal marker reads baby daughter, baby son, and 15-month-old son. A stone mosaic of the Star of David adorns the center plot. At the 2020 census, the population of Cotopaxi was 44 people. 3 baby graves in Colorado tell one heartbreaking story. But the next colony left behind something even more haunting. An entire cemetery in the middle of the Utah desert. Number 5 takes us to Clarion in Sanpete County, Utah. In 1911, 12 Jewish immigrants, all under the age of 30, started a colony in the central Utah desert. 3 miles west of Centerfield and 135 miles south of Salt Lake City, the Clarion Jewish colony was built on dreams and a lack of water. This was part of the Jewish Back to the Soil movement that founded over 40 agricultural settlements across America, Argentina, Canada, and Israel. By October of 1912, there were about 150 families living at the colony. The colonists were determined. In one of their reports to Eastern investors, they made reference to a large cistern they had built to filter and store water. But on its first filling, one of the cistern walls collapsed. Their water system was destroyed. Without water in the desert, there could be no future. Utah historian Robert Goldberg attributes the colony's failure to multiple factors: a lack of farming experience, poor soil, short planting seasons, an inadequate water supply, and constant money shortages. By 1915, the population had decreased by almost 2/3. A state order terminated the colony's title on November 25th of that year. Clarion today is a ghost town. All that remains of Jewish utopia are some crumbling foundation stones and the headstone of Aaron Binder, on whose tomb both Hebrew and English are inscribed. The stones are respectfully cared for by a dairy farm owner who placed metal cages around them to prevent cows from scratching against them. Utah's desert claimed Clarion, but at least those colonists knew what they were getting into. The next group was promised a socialist paradise in the Oregon wilderness. Number 4 brings us to New Odessa in Douglas County, Oregon. This was a utopian community established by Jewish adherents of the A.M. Olam agrarian movement who emigrated from Tsarist Russia in 1882. At its peak in 1883, about 65 people participated in the experiment. New Odessa was one of the most well-known A.M. Olam colonies. It managed to survive until 1887, longer than most. The colony centered on socialist ideology and shared ownership of the land. Unlike some other colonies based in Orthodox philosophy, New Odessa was secular and attempted to enact gender equality through democratic living. Members shared meals together and made decisions by vote. The communal land parcel was purchased for $4,800. They named it New Odessa in memory of their Ukrainian point of origin. But political divisions ultimately led to the community's demise. William Frey, a charismatic but uncompromising Russian atheist, believed the entire community should adhere to what he called a religion of humanity. Not everyone agreed. Difficult living conditions and factionalism in personal relations added to the strain. A lack of female participation made the social experiment even harder. Devoid of both visionary leadership and a viable economic plan, New Odessa began to default on its financial obligations. On October 18, 1887, they filed for bankruptcy. Today, no physical structures survive. The Oregon forest has reclaimed everything that was once New Odessa. Hikers pass through these woods without knowing they are walking on sacred ground where pioneers once dreamed of building a better world. Ideology tore New Odessa apart, but the next location survived longer than any other Jewish colony in America, and parts of it still stand today. Number 3 takes us to Woodbine in Cape May County, New Jersey. This colony was founded in 1891 as a settlement for Eastern European Jews. The Baron de Hirsch Fund purchased 5,300 acres of land in Dennis Township. Baron Maurice de Hirsch was a German Jewish financier and philanthropist. In 1891, he established a fund in New York City to help Russian Jews immigrate to America. He provided $2,400,000 for agricultural colonies and trade schools. This was an enormous sum at the time, equivalent to tens of millions of dollars today. Within 2 years, the settlers cleared the forest and built a settlement with thriving farms. 800 acres were set aside as town lots. Using modern agricultural practices under the direction of agriculturist and chemist Hirsch Loeb Sapsevich, the first colonists turned Woodbine into a model agricultural community. Through hard work and perseverance, Woodbine became the largest Jewish agricultural colony in southern New Jersey. But the experiment never truly succeeded as planned. The land was poor for farming. The settlers lacked experience, and the site was too far from viable markets. Many settlers drifted into labor for manufacturers instead. The Woodbine colony remained open until the 1940s, but the agricultural dream had long since faded. Today, the Baron de Hirsch Agricultural College has become the Woodbine Developmental Center, a state-run facility which is Cape May County's largest employer. The residential center of Woodbine still uses the same street grid originally laid out in 1891. Woodbine evolved into something its founders never imagined. But the next colony has an even stranger afterlife. It is being reborn. Number 2 brings us to Alliance in Salem County, New Jersey. The Alliance Colony was a Jewish agricultural community founded on May 10, 1882 in Pittsgrove Township. It was named after the Alliance Israelite Universelle of Paris. Founded by 43 original families and soon joined by many more, Alliance formed the first successful Jewish agricultural colony in the United States. The Jewish farmers sold their produce, such as strawberries and cranberries, at markets in Philadelphia and New York City. The colony became known for the quality of its berries and the dedication of its farmers. By the early 20th century, the community's population grew to over several hundred resident families, anchoring a thriving local ecosystem. After World War II, a second wave of immigrants arrived. Holocaust survivors settled nearby and built successful chicken farms. These survivors found healing in working the land their predecessors had cultivated decades before. The last known survivor of the original Alliance colony was Lillian Greenblatt Braun. She celebrated her 100th birthday in 2005 and died on October 20, 2015, at the age of 110. Today, remnants of Alliance still exist. The cemetery is still in use and well-maintained. The home of founder Moses Bayuk is still standing, with plans to turn it into a cultural center and museum. Most remarkably, a family named the Levins have now opened the renovated farmhouse as a kosher Airbnb. Alliance is being reborn. Alliance is experiencing resurrection and remembrance. But our final destination represents something rarer still, a place of complete erasure. A silence so total that only historical records confirm it ever existed. Number 1 takes us to Painted Woods in what is now North Dakota. In 1882, an attempt was made to found a colony of Russian Jewish farmers near the town of Bismarck. 20 families arrived, each receiving 160 acres, largely due to the efforts of Reverend J. Wexler of St. Paul, Minnesota. In the course of a year, the colony had increased to 54 families, representing some 200 individuals. This was the furthest north any Jewish agricultural settlement had ever attempted. The isolation was total. The nearest Jewish community was hundreds of miles away. Before misfortune struck, the population consisted of 71 men, 52 women, and nearly 90 children. They built sod houses. They celebrated Shabbat while blizzards howled outside. They spoke Hebrew prayers on the North Dakota wind. Then came the prairie fires. Then came the severe drought during the winter of 1884 to 1885. Their losses were so heavy that there was much distress among the colonists. By the spring of 1885, only 40 colonists were left, and then there were none. When the families left, they scattered to Minneapolis and St. Paul and cities beyond. The prairie reclaimed everything. No structures survive, no gravestones mark the spot. Only historical records confirm that for a brief moment, Jewish families lived and prayed and dreamed on this empty North Dakota landscape. Today, there is nothing, only wind, only grass, only silence, where children once played and families once